Golf is the closest game to the game we call life. You get bad breaks from good shots. You get good breaks from bad shots, but you have to play the ball where it lies. Competitive golf is played mainly on a 5.5-inch course, the space between your ears. The main idea in golf, as in life, I suppose, is to learn to accept what cannot be altered and to keep on doing one's own reasoned and resolute best, whether the prospect be bleak or rosy. The real way to enjoy playing golf is to take pleasure, not in the score, but in the execution of strokes. You might as well praise a man for not robbing a bank as to praise him for playing by the rules. The rewards of golf, and of life too, I expect, are worth very little if you don't play the game by the etiquette as well as by the rules. I never learned anything from a match that I won. The object of golf is to beat someone. Make sure that someone is not yourself. You swing your best when you have the fewest things to think about. Golf is the only game I know of that actually becomes harder the longer you play it. No one will ever have golf under his thumb. No round ever will be so good it could not have been better. Perhaps this is why golf is the greatest of games. You are not playing a human adversary. You are playing a game. You are playing old man par. The toughest opponent of all is old man par. He's a patient soul who never shoots a birdie and never incurs a bogey. And if you would travel the long road with him, you must be patient too. In order to win, you must play your best golf when you need it most, and play your sloppy stuff when you can afford it. I shall not attempt to explain how you achieve this happy timing. Golf is a game that creates emotions that sometimes cannot be sustained with the club still in one's hand. Golf is a game that is played on a 5-inch course. Golf is recognized as one of the more difficult games to play or teach. One reason for this is that each person necessarily plays by feel, and a feel is almost impossible to describe. A leading difficulty with the average player is that he totally misunderstands what is meant by concentration. He may think he is concentrating hard when he is merely worrying. Many shots are spoiled at the last instant by efforts to add a few more yards. Rhythm and timing are the two things which we all must have, yet no one knows how to teach either. On the golf course, a man may be the dogged victim of inexorable fate, be struck down by an appalling stroke of tragedy, become the hero of unbelievable melodrama, or the clown in a side-splitting comedy. I can play the game only one way. I must play every shot for all there is in it. I cannot play safe. As I see it, the thing that hurt my putting most when it was bad was thinking too much about how I was making the stroke and not enough about getting the ball in the hole. Nobody ever swung a club too slowly. The enemy in golf is tension. Nobody ever wins the National Open. Somebody loses it. Golf is assuredly a mystifying game. It would seem that if a person has hit a golf ball correctly 1,000 times, he should be able to duplicate the performance at will. But such is certainly not the case. In golf, the customs and etiquette and decorum are as important as the rules of play. The difference between a sand trap and water hazard is the difference between a car crash and an airplane crash. You have a chance of recovering from a car crash. If ever I needed an 8-foot putt and everything I owned depended on it, I would want Arnold Palmer to putt for me. I think that Alistair, Mackenzie, and I managed to work as a completely sympathetic team. Of course, there was never any question that he was the architect and I was the advisor and consultant. No man learns to design a golf course simply by playing golf, no matter how well. But it happened that both of us were extravagant admirers of the old course at St Andrews, and we both desired as much as possible to simulate seaside conditions insofar as the differences in turf and terrain would allow. I get as much fun as the next man from whaling the ball as hard as I can and catching it squarely on the button. But from sad experience, I learned not to try this in a round that meant anything. One reason golf is such an exasperating game is that a thing we learned is so easily forgotten, and we find ourselves struggling year after year with faults we had discovered and corrected time and again. The secret of golf is to turn 3 shots into 2. He, the golfer, must have the courage to keep trying in the face of ill luck or disappointment, and timidity to appreciate and appraise the dangers of each stroke, and to curb the desire to take chances beyond reasonable hope of success. I will tell you privately, it's not going to get better. It's going to get worse all the time, but don't fret. Remember, we play the ball where it lies, and now let's not talk about this ever again. Some people think they are concentrating when they're merely worrying. The best exercise for golfers is golfing. Golf is said to be an humbling game, but it is surprising how many people are either not aware of their weaknesses or else reckless of consequences. Doesn't it show us all that we are silly little boys, or fatuous asses to think that we can play golf without making a lot of bad shots? It is nothing new or original to say that golf is played one stroke at a time, but it took me many years to realize it. No putt is too short to be despised. If I had ever been set down in any one place and told I was to play there, and nowhere else, for the rest of my life, I should have chosen the old course at St Andrews. Bobby Jones considered objectively, it is quite obviously a very simple matter to propel a ball with a stick across some specially prepared ground and into a hole which is of sufficient size to accommodate it by a good margin. Simple, that is, provided there is no limit upon the time or the number of strokes required. The moment the average golfer attempts to play from long grass or a bunker or from a difficult lie of any kind, he becomes a digger instead of a swinger,